Tell me if this hits you the way it hit me. A ballroom packed with people who never stop talking, a girl who can't hear a word, and a father with all the money in the world who somehow can't buy 5 minutes of real communication. Have you ever watched someone be invisible in plain sight? Ever felt it yourself? Because that night, I decided I wasn't going to stand there and let it happen again. I was on a freelance gig at the Westwood Hotel in Seattle, chandeliers tossing little rainbows on polished marble, perfume and champagne and polite laughter mixing in the air, like a script everyone had practiced. I wasn't a guest, I was staff and ASL interpreter on standby. Black cocktail dress I'd worn to every event like this, hair pinned back. So my hands and face were clear. My agency had said, "Blend in, be ready, don't cause trouble," so I did what you do when you need the check. I floated at the edges and pretended the edges were where I wanted to be. Then I saw her tucked behind a marble column, like a kid who taught herself to disappear, a teenager, in a midnight blue dress, posture. A little too careful, Yous. A little too sharp. Watching lips the way you watch subtitles. When the sound cuts out, her shoulders had that tiny, permanent flinch. I recognize the one you get when your brain has been lip-reading for hours, and your eyes feel like sand. I knew in a breath she was deaf, and I knew in 2 breaths that nobody had spoken to her in her own language all night. The room shifted like a wave. You could feel it in your ribs. People turned, phones rose, the photographers started doing that circus shuffle they do. When someone important arrives, the honored guest had showed up, Jackson Pierce, billionaire, the man whose name sat in metal letters on the pediatric wing, where I sometimes worked, polished shoes, salt and pepper hair, the posture of somebody whose time is money and whose attention is a limited resource that people fight for. He walked in, and the crowd was a magnet. Donors drifting toward him, reporters calling flashes going off, and the girl in blue watched him with that mix that breaks your chest, a little pride braided with resignation. Like, of course, he belongs to the room, and of course the room belongs to him, and of course he won't look her way. I crossed the floor. I didn't think about it too long, because if I think too long, I obey the rules. I stopped in front of her where she could see me clearly, and I raised my hands. "Hello," I signed. Open palms, simple smile. "My name is Malene," and her face changed. "I swear." A light turned on behind her eyes. "I'm Olivia," she signed back. Quick, elegant, like someone who learned to make language with her whole body. "You know ASL, are you deaf too?" I told her. "I'm hearing I interpret sometimes at the children's hospital. I'm here tonight if you want company that actually talks to you." She laughed, silent but bright. "God, yes," she signed. "I've been reading lips since I walked in. My eyes are burning. And the things people do when they find out I'm deaf. Can you read lips? They ask. Then they exaggerate like cartoons. Or they start shouting like volume fixes, nerve damage. Or they start talking to whoever I'm standing with, as if I left my brain at home and brought an escort to carry it. Do you think that's fair? You ever seen that?" I nodded, because yeah, that happens too often. She told me about school Westridge Academy mainstream, with a deaf program, how the hearing kids decided she was stuck up because of her last name. How some of the deaf kids decided she couldn't possibly know real struggle because she had money. "It is what it is," she signed. But the shrug didn't hide the hit. "I paint," she added. "That's where I breathe." I told her I wanted to see her work. She tilted her chin toward the crowd, toward him. Her father, who was performing philanthropy like a veteran on stage, shaking hands, collecting praise, never once signing hello in the direction of his own kid. Then the assistant arrived with a photographer. The choreography kicked in. They asked Olivia to stand by her father for photos. He turned, spoke slowly, loudly, the way hearing people do when they think it helps. No sign, no check-in, no "who are you" to me. He didn't ask who I was or why I was with his daughter. He didn't even clock that I was signing while I spoke. Olivia's face slid into that safe neutral. A lot of kids wear when they've been turned into props. She signed fast as she moved away. See what I mean? And the crowd swallowed her. Later out on the terrace, under the soft garden lights, I found her again, just breathing, letting the night air rinse her eyes. We were talking, hands moving the way minds move when they're finally understood. When the door opened, and he stepped out, Jackson. Pierce, up close, he was exactly like his photographs. And nothing like them. He looked tired around the edges. He looked like a man who believed his presence was a favor, and his time was a gift. He saw Olivia, then he saw me, confusion, then defense, he said. It was time to go and said it out loud to her mouth, not to her hands, not to her eyes, not to the part of her that takes in language. And I made a choice. Mr. Pierce, I said. And I signed every word for Olivia, because that's what respect looks like. My name is Malene Foster. I'm an interpreter. I've been talking with your daughter. She's extraordinary. He blinked like I'd splashed him with cold water. Thank you. Do you work for the event? He asked. Yes, I said. But right now I'm someone who thinks you should know what you're missing by not being able to talk to her directly. The temperature dropped. He told me I'd overstepped. Maybe I had, maybe I didn't care. Olivia signed. It's okay, he gets defensive. Then followed him inside, and I stood under the pretty hotel sky thinking, well, there goes my job. Next morning, voicemail from my agency. Call me immediately. You know that drop in your stomach? Yeah, that happened. I called ready to apologize, ready to explain, ready to beg for the next gig. Instead, I heard they requested you. This afternoon, private appointment. Pierce Estate. I had to sit down if it were you. What would you have done? Turned it down on principle, or gone to see what the richest man in the room wanted with the girl who told him the truth? I went. The estate was glass and stone and money sitting quiet beside Lake Washington. The kind of quiet that's purchased and landscaped inside was museum-still curated art. Soft rugs that swallow your footsteps. One painting stopped me cold. Big swaths of cobalt and gold that didn't match the rest of the collection. The housekeeper caught me staring. Olivia's, she said. And I thought, of course it is the voice she uses when the world won't listen. He met me in a lakefront office that looked like a decision engine floor-to-ceiling Windows desk that told you who had the power and who had the pen. Miss Foster. Thank you for coming. Formal. Careful. I braced for a reprimand. An NDA, a polite check to keep me quiet. I did not brace for what he said. I owe you an apology. My words last night were inappropriate in that setting, but not inaccurate. It's been made clear to me that I've failed my daughter in significant ways. I watched a billionaire say the thing billionaires don't like to say. I failed, and it sounded like relief and grief in the same breath. He told me the story I had suspected and still wasn't ready to hear the car accident when Olivia was 7. Black ice, a truck, jackknifed a split second of metal and glass, his wife Catherine gone. In an instant, his daughter waking up in a silent world. He spent 2 years trying to buy sound. Back specialists, surgeons, clinics with framed degrees and gentle voices, and when acceptance finally arrived, it brought a wall with it. Interpreters and tutors and professionals between him and his kid. He hid behind the experts, because the mirror on the other side of the wall was too painful. He sold Catherine's piano because the notes hurt. He stopped playing her records. He called it protection. I heard avoidance, you know what I mean? Why am I here? I asked. And I needed him to say it. Not imply it, not hint at it. Like a favor. I want to hire you, he said, not to interpret. For Olivia to teach me to sign. I should have done it years ago. I want to talk to my daughter without an intermediary. And there it was, the sentence I'd been waiting to hear, the first brick lifting out of a wall older than most of the people in that room last night. I told him the truth he needed to hear. ASL takes time, consistency, humility, he said. He had both. At least he had the will to try, twice a week, a year, minimum more if his schedule allows, I said. Then we start this week. He struggled. Of course he did. Adults always do when the prize isn't money or a deal, but connection. His fingers tried to spell every word like he could, brute force his way through the alphabet. I slowed him down. Eyes up, I said. Light your face, keep your hands where she can see them. Don't talk while you sign. It's not a performance, it's a conversation. He told me he'd learned Mandarin for a business deal. Once I said, "This isn't a deal, this is your kid." He didn't argue. His first phrases meant more than any symbol in his portfolio. "I'm proud of you, I love you." "I'm sorry, how was your day?" He signed them like they were breakable. I corrected his hand shape like it was routine. And in between, we talked about grief, shame, the way silence hardens into habit, until you forget there was ever another way. In the meantime, I met Olivia for coffee near her school. No marble columns there. Just a teenager with paint under her fingernails and a face that lights up when she talks about color. She rolled her eyes when I told her he was practicing. He approaches everything like a business acquisition, she signed. Study it, master it, move on. Is that so bad if it means he can finally talk to you, I asked. She looked away and I saw it. The hope she kept folded small. She told me about her senior showcase, asked if I'd come. I told her I wouldn't miss it for anything. Stick around, because what happened next will blow your mind. The night of the showcase, the school gallery pulsed with that good kind of noise. Students making last-minute tweaks, proud families pretending not to loom. Olivia's wall was a punch to the heart. Abstracts that felt like memory. When you close your eyes, the centerpiece was a split canvas, left side chaos, with red and black slashes and hidden words. You could only see if you leaned in, right side blue and gold, a slow kind of order, and tucked into the paint, the shapes of hands forming signs, title after silence. And I thought, if he can see this, is really see it, we have a shot. He arrived, and the headmaster did that thing where you steer a benefactor toward the right places. Jackson stopped, shook free, and walked straight to his daughter's work. I watched his face do math he hadn't done in years. The title, the hands in the paint, the hidden words in the noise. He turned to her, raised his hands, and in front of everyone, slowly and carefully, so he wouldn't rush and break it, he signed. "These are beautiful. I'm proud of you." She froze like her body didn't trust it, then signed back, "Thank you," tiny words. Huge weight. The room went hush. A private thing happening in public. A door opening with witnesses. And then the twist that cracked the night in half. The headmaster dimmed the lights, thanked the donors, said kind words about the arts, and announced the Catherine Pierce Memorial Scholarship for Excellence in Visual Arts. A full year at the Paris Institute. The recipient, Miss Olivia Pierce. Time tried to clap. Olivia did not. She turned and walked out, fast. We followed. We found her in an empty classroom that looked like every bad memory of school, fluorescent lights buzzing, metal desks, too shiny. Her hands were flying so fast he couldn't keep up. He looked at me like a drowning man. I voiced for her. "How could you use Mom's name without telling me? How could you make decisions about my future without asking? How can you call it a gift when it feels like control?" he said. He thought she'd be pleased, he said. Harvard would still be there, she said. That wasn't the point. She said he'd been deciding her life since she was 7. She signed the thing that had been catching in her throat for a decade, not to wound him, but because the truth was a kind of medicine. You couldn't bear to look at me after she died. You sent me away to schools with interpreters and visiting weekends and polite smiles. Then you disappeared again. Do you know what that felt like? I put voice to it and watched his face fold and hold. I'll tell you something people don't like to admit sometimes. Love runs away and calls it protection, he said. He was trying to keep from failing her. Worse, that professionals could give what he couldn't. That he was drowning in guilt, she said. She needed a father, not a program. He stepped forward, then stopped, like he'd hit electric fencing, all that money, and no map for this room. Is that why you're learning to sign now? She asked. Through me to bridge the gap, yes, he said. And the billionaire fell off his voice. A dad stood there instead. We sat in that silence that decides if you're going to build or burn, finally, she said. I don't want to go to Paris. Harvard is my dream, he nodded slow, like a man choosing to carry weight on purpose then. Harvard it is. The scholarship can go to another student, and she surprised me. Maybe we could go to Paris together. Sometime Mom always wanted that. He blinked like a window opened. He raised his hands. I'm sorry. I failed you. I love you, Olivia. She stepped in and hugged him, the way little kids do and grown kids remember. He mouthed thank you at me over her shoulder, and I slipped out because privacy is a kind of love, too. 6 months later, I sat at her graduation front row, held a man watching his daughter with his whole face. Olivia was valedictorian. She signed her speech with a voice interpreter for the hearing folks. She talked about conversations that happen in silence about art, as a language about love, as a gesture. You make over and over after the ceremony. They pulled me aside and showed me photos. An East Wing sunroom turned into a studio with lake light pouring in canvases, ready. He told me about a foundation they'd started in Catherine's name for deaf education and the arts for therapy programs and scholarships. And he said every staff member would be required to learn ASL. No exceptions, he signed while he spoke, still careful, still basic, but fluent in the way that matters. They asked me to come on as program director. I said yes because sometimes the work you're called to finds you back. Now I know how stories like this get packaged. I know how people like neat endings. I won't lie to you, it's not neat. The gallery scene didn't fix a decade. The foundation doesn't fix abandonment. A scholarship doesn't untie grief. What changed things was smaller and harder. 2 people decided to do the boring, holy work of showing up. He kept learning, she kept speaking. They failed some days and tried again the next. That's love, not the party. The practice, you know what I mean. But I want to leave you with the part that still stings, and maybe it should. Why do we throw confetti for performative generosity while shrugging at basic responsibility? Why do we clap for the building with a name on it and ignore the kid standing alone inside? Why do we let money be a microphone and silence be the price? Do you think that's fair? If it were you, would a wing of a hospital mean anything? If the person you love most needs a stranger to translate. I love you. I tell this the way I lived it, as a woman who's been told to stay in her lane, who crossed it anyway and got lucky because someone on the other side finally decided to learn. Not every ending looks like this. Some nights the kid stays behind the column. Some fathers don't come back from the terrace. But sometimes someone changes just enough to change everyone around them. And when you see it happen in front of your eyes, you carry it with you like a small, bright thing in your pocket for the days you need proof. So here's my ask, and it's plain. When you notice the person tucked into the shadow of the room, walk over and say hello in their language if you can. And if you can't yet learn, if you're the one the cameras chase, use that spotlight like a mirror and check who's missing from your frame. And if you've been the person in blue standing still while the room roars, leave me. You are not a prop. You are not a problem to solve. You are a voice even when the world is too loud to hear it. Now it's your turn. What hit you hardest? The terrace where I broke the rule. The office where a billionaire said, I failed the gallery twist that cracked the night open, or the classroom where the truth finally got signed. Do you think the scholarship was love or control? Would you have walked out too? Tell me in the comments. Argue with me, correct me, add what I missed. Share this with someone who thinks money and love are the same currency. And if you've lived any part of this, being ignored, being spoken around, being translated instead of addressed, tell your story below. I'll be there reading, listening, learning. Hit like if this moved. You subscribe if you want more true stories, told without the varnish. And tell me where you're watching from, so we remember how big this room really is. Let's make some noise for the conversations that happen in silence and keep each other honest about the rest. Yeah, that happened. And I'm still here. Hands up, eyes open, ready to talk.